Hello, kids. Welcome back to the Warrior Mindset show where we explain discipline, resilience, and self-mastery in ways that help us get better 1% every day. I'm Gene. I'm your host. Today, let's look into the philosophy of one of the greatest warriors of all time, Miyamoto Musashi.
Welcome to the Warrior Mindset Podcast. We're your guide as you make your way through life, getting better 1% every day. We believe that life is lived and true victory won through adversity. Nothing easy is ever worth it. We believe in the warrior ethos and support those that choose to walk that path.
So Musashi's 21 principles for life, also known as the Dokkōdō, or the path of aloneness. All right. They aren't just lessons in being a warrior in swordsmanship. They're a way of living, guiding warriors and seekers of truth to navigate life with honor, strength, and wisdom. If you're familiar with this sort of thing, these principles align very closely with other things, other writings like the Hagakure and other Bushido study, right? Even in modern military teachings, such as those derived from the Navy SEALs, like we learned from Coach Mark Devine, Jocko, people like that. Today we're breaking them down, not just as abstract philosophical things that like samurai and stuff worry about, but as we're going to look at them in terms of like practical lessons for Warrior Mindset listeners in our everyday life. So Miyamoto Musashi is known sort of as the lone wolf of the samurai era. This is a deep story about him we could get into. He is literally like Japan's Robin Hood. He's their legendary legend story that we talk about. All right. He was more than just a traveling swordsman. So he there's a lot to him, but he was known to travel the Japan countryside, getting in duels, and it's like 60 duels or something. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but that he didn't lose. And these were duels to the death, essentially. So you can see where the legend comes from. He was a philosopher of combat and of life. He lived by the way. In our martial art, we call it the code. In Zen Shotokai, we call it the code. It's a life path of discipline, self-reliance, strategic thinking about your life, and martial practice. His book, The Book of Five Rings, is the one he's probably most known for, is cornerstone in martial arts study and military strategy and leadership across pretty much anything. In the same way that Jocko Willink preaches about extreme ownership, Musashi believes that a warrior must take full responsibility for their life and their actions. No excuses, no shortcuts. At the end of his life, Musashi he retreated to a cave and wrote the Dokkōdō. The cave's a real place. Around 1645, I think, if I'm pulling that off the top of my head, but this cave in Rigondo, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Rigondo, Spirit Cave in Kumamoto, Japan. I should write this down, but after, all his travels and his duels, and, it's debatable whether he was in some actual war or not, honing his craft as a samurai swordsman, a battle strategist, and an artist, he sought solitude to reflect on his life and distill his wisdom into his scrolls. He didn't write a book, they were scrolls. He had already written the Book of Five Rings, sort of his last life opus on strategy. But in his final days, he wrote the Dokkōdō, the way of self-reliance. It's a set of 21 principles meant to guide him and his disciples through life, right? Unlike the Book of Five Rings, the Dokkōdō is personal, right? Philosophical, emphasizes detachment, simplicity, discipline. His principles reject materialism, reject emotional attachment, and dependence on worldly comfort. Something I think that we could all kind of stand nowadays with our reliance on the internet and constantly being on. It teaches you a life of self-discipline and inner strength, right? I've heard a lot of older martial artists and some of the upper ranks will say, "I walk alone." I've seen that written, and after reading this book, I've kind of understand it now. He wrote this as he was preparing to die. Like, it was towards the end, and I believe he was sick. I'm not sure, but he wrote this when he was preparing for his death. And he's writing this as a warrior who's lived a life of being a warrior for real, who had not only mastered combat, but also his way of life. And he's writing this down. Shortly after writing it, he passed away. And he leaves us with a legacy that continues to inspire me, other martial artists, real life warriors, and just people who seek wisdom. So I want to go through those. There's 21 of them. There's a lot of them, but I want to go through them. And I thought it would be great to sort of memorialize this in one of these episodes. And I thought I had done it, but it turns out I'd just written a blog post about it. But I wanted to put it in this format so you could listen to it, so I could listen to it. So let's get into it. Number 1, accept everything just the way it is. In a sister sister book, the Hagakure, which was written by 2 samurai, kind of wrote that together. They have a line that I pull out. It is not necessary to say everything that one thinks or to act on everything that one says. Okay, this is a very Zen meditative point. Accept everything just the way it is. So a warrior must accept reality without resistance. This doesn't mean that you passively submit to life, but it means seeing things clearly and responding with that precision, right? Navy SEAL, there's a Navy SEAL thing, control what you can control, sort of echoes this idea, right? Complaining and wishing things were different, just not accepting reality is a waste of energy. So instead, focus your energy on adapting and overcoming, right? Would be his teaching, I think. 2, do not seek pleasure for its own sake. So Musashi's writing and warning us about chasing pleasure mindlessly. Okay, a warrior lives for purpose in life, not indulgence. SEAL teams train under brutal conditions to become SEALs. They train, they relentlessly practice because discipline must override comfort. Like Jocko says, discipline equals freedom. You'll hear me talk about the SEALs a lot. I just have a lot of great respect for them. One of my mentors, Mark Devine, I've been with him for a long time. So that's just where a lot of my base comes from. But discipline must override comfort. And like Jocko says, discipline equals freedom. Okay? Another quote from the Hagakure: a warrior is worthless unless he rises above others and stands strong in the midst of a storm. Right? So it's kind of like that, and I'm going to get this wrong, but it's like out of 100, we're talking about Spartans, the ancient Spartans. There was a saying about their soldiers that I think King Leonidas said is like, out of 100 men, 10 will really fight, but 1 is a warrior, and he will lead the others. And That's what it means. That's what it means when I say the word warrior. That's what that means to me. It means you are the one in 100. So ask yourself, are my pleasures making me stronger or weaker? That's a good one. Number 3, do not depend on a partial feeling. So this is about decisiveness and clarity. A warrior cannot afford to act on half-formed emotions, whether in a fight or in business. You have to assess your situation fully. You have to assess the strategy fully before you commit, right? So as Jocko often says, discipline equals freedom. This applies here. Discipline your mind to think clearly and acting decisively based on that. The Hagakure says, make your decisions within the space of 7 breaths. And if you think about that, that means do not respond instantly. I don't know how many times I've done that where someone said something and I just respond immediately, and it's always from a place of emotion. And that's what this is not about, coming from a place of emotion. It's about removing your emotion and coming from a place of discipline and strategy and clear thought. Okay, that takes discipline. That takes discipline of the mind. This is one of my favorites. We have this on a t-shirt that I've done for years, but think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. So ego, we talk about Ryan Holiday a lot on this podcast. I love the Stoic Marcus Aurelius and reading and listening to Ryan Holiday. Ego is the enemy. He has a book called Ego is the Enemy. Ego is the enemy. A true warrior stays humble and focuses on understanding the world. This is not just for martial arts. This is for leadership, your relationships, your personal growth. You'll see that. There's a difference between humility and showmanship, but Bruce Lee, Musashi, the SEALs, all these guys will emphasize the power of humility. And in our Zen Shotokai, it's one of the 3 tenets. It's one of the 3 is humility. Okay. There's a book called Bushido, The Soul of Japan, and it has a quote that I've pulled out. A man who has attained mastery of an art reveals it in his every action. Right? So when you have a true understanding of things, you see it broadly in the world and everything you look at, you know? So this is a deep one. We could do probably a whole episode on think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world, but it's a good one. And if you're going to study any of these, maybe start with this one. On to 5. Be detached from your desire your whole life long. Desire creates attachment. Attachment creates suffering. I know I sound like Yoda. By remaining free from, unnecessary desires, we become unshakable, okay? It doesn't mean to be an emotionless cyborg, but it means maintaining control over what you want rather than being controlled by them. So if you feel like you're like an impulsive person, or you shop too much or you indulge too much, right? Your desires are creating bad circumstances for you, right? So in the Hagakure, they have this quote, "The way of the warrior is resolute acceptance of death." So my dad always told me that if you're going into a negotiation and you want the thing, or you have to have the thing that you're negotiating over, you've already lost. The thing about buying a car, if you're going in to buy a car because you don't have one anymore, it's like something happened to yours and you have to get a new one, you've kind of already lost that negotiation because you have to walk out with one, right? You have to enter the negotiation willing to not leave with the car, right? And that's what puts you in the position to win, essentially. So almost every bad outcome I've had in my life in terms of business is because I made a decision based on the fact that I wanted something really bad. And because I wanted it really bad, I was willing to overlook all the red flags and things that probably should have made me not do the thing. And so I did the thing and then later suffered for doing the thing. The same could be said of relationships too. If we tend to overlook red flags in people early on because we really want to be friends with them or whatever, So think about it. Number 6, do not regret what you have done. Navy SEAL saying, regret is a weight no warrior should carry. Pretty clear what they might be referring to there, but a warrior takes responsibility. But there is no time for regret. Instead of dwelling on these things, dwelling on the past, learn from it and move forward. Okay? Every mistake is a lesson, not a burden. Was it Andy Frisella, I think, of the First Form stuff? Love him or hate him. I don't know where I sit necessarily. Probably more on the not a huge fan side, but I do like the fact that he calls mistakes in business tuition payments on the future. I think it's him that I heard that from. But so you make a mistake in business, think of it more as a tuition payment, not as, the nail that closes the coffin on your business, right? Every mistake is a lesson, not a burden. Number 7, never be jealous. This is a hard one sometimes. Bushido saying, comparing yourself to others blinds you from your own path. Jealousy is weakness. Instead of envying others, focus inward on becoming stronger, right? Warriors compete with themselves, not with other people. One of my big pet peeves with CrossFit, the CrossFit community mentality, whatever, is that the competition is baked into the workout. And in our gym, we've really gotten away from, it's called leaderboarding, when you come in and look at where everyone, how fast they've done the workout or whatever. Because at the end of the day, it's just working out. But whatever. It's a whole argument about sport versus working out. But yeah, we shouldn't compare ourselves to others. That's something they teach us in like 5th grade, right? But when you are truly doing some inner work, working on yourself, comparison, it will really kill you. So never be jealous. Number 8, never let yourself be saddened by a separation. This is one that I've struggled with. People, places, things, stuff will come and go. A warrior doesn't dwell on loss, but moves forward with honor. Miyamoto Musashi himself has written, if you wish to control others, you must first control yourself. In Zen Shotokai, in karate, Shotokan karate, the first principle is first know yourself, then know others. You see that one in a lot of these things and a lot of these principles that these great warriors and martial artists have written down. This is one in particular. And I've struggled with that one too, right? Another mentor of mine, Stuart Brower, he helps coach gym owners and things like that. He told me once that on a long enough timeline, everyone will leave, or everyone leaves. And that's sort of a gym industry thing, like as gym owners or coaches or whatever, people come and go, and you can't get butthurt over every time someone leaves, because it just might be time, in the natural pace of life, things happen, things change, people change, and as a karate teacher myself, I've seen a lot of people come and go, and a lot of people that I've really, really enjoyed spending time with and teaching and doing the thing, and they leave, and it hurts. And, you cannot dwell on that. You have to move forward for the sake of everyone else, for the sake of yourself. So never let yourself be saddened by separation. Number 9, resentment and complaint are inappropriate. A warrior does not complain, he endures. It's from the Hagakure. Complaining wastes time. Resentment weakens your spirit. Focus on solutions and not the problem. In my coaching practice, that is something that I often get stuck on with people, where they're just kind of fixated on the problems laid out in front of them, and I'm usually like, well, let's just boil this down into the things we have to do to overcome whatever that hurdle is, and they'll get stuck on that, and it's just a way of looking at things, right? So complaining about whatever, it's just inappropriate if you're a warrior. We don't take the time to do that. Period. 10, do not be guided by lust or love. A warrior masters his emotions. His emotions do not master him. You cannot be led by your emotion, right? Lust and love can cloud your judgment. Maintain balance and rationality in relationships. I'm not saying, and he's not saying, to not live with passion, to not love another human, right? But clarity is stronger. Even in relationships, if you truly love someone, you should have clarity around that it is mutual, that you go into it with open eyes, regardless of that other person's past or whatever. I have it's not necessarily a close friend, but an acquaintance, and they are married, and one of the partners is having a hard time with drug abuse. And I was talking to the person about, like, man, it's funny when you're with someone, at some point you are going to come across a time where you have to decide, is this my person forever, no matter what? Or is this the time when I jump ship? And there's always that point in a true relationship. You truly love someone, you're going to come across that point in your relationship, and it's a fork in the road, man. And that's what that is. That's love, yes, but it's also clarity helping guide that love. That's a very strong one. 11, in all things have no preference. Musashi himself further writes, fixation is the way to death. Fluidity is the way of life. I think that's from the Book of Five Rings. But this principle is about adaptability. A warrior cannot afford to be rigid in mind, action, or body, right? So you get this from the Book of Five Rings, but his fighting style was very fluid and very flexible. He never clung to one single way of doing things, right? And often he had a two-sword fighting style, and all the other schools were single sword, and he would fight with two different size swords, two of the same size swords, and he even fought with wooden swords, The way of the samurais is being immediate, right? It's responding instantly because of all the other principles, right? So there's a modern parallel with the SEALs. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, or embrace the suck. I've seen on patches and stuff. So a warrior learns to thrive in any situation, whether it's battle, whether it's fighting, business, personal life, right? Attachment to your preferences creates weakness, right? So Musashi teaches us, don't cling to a single way of thinking. Don't be paralyzed when things don't go as planned. Don't let comfort dictate your actions. Those are all different ways of saying embrace the suck. Right? Being comfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? We just let our preferences for comfort, our preferences for things dictate a lot of the way we do things, right? And that's natural. That's natural. And I often think about this one as this sort of part and parcel with craftsmanship or mastery, which is like, I use my set of tools in a certain way, and that's what makes me good. But is it the tool or is it me? And that's where the confidence in mastery comes in, right? So this is another deep one, but it's another one of my favorites, particularly when we think about craftsmanship and mastery. Number 12, be indifferent to where you live. A Zen proverb is, wherever I go, I am home. It's a very Musashi thing, because he traveled around for years and years and years and years, right? So a warrior does not attach their identity to a place. Samurai traveled from They worked for different lords and different people. They were essentially hired to do a certain job. They lived their life always ready to serve. Just like the SEALs, they trained to operate in any terrain, even though it's sea is part of their, sea, earth, air, land, whatever. But sea is part of the term there. But they do operate in any terrain, desert, jungle, sea, city, whatever. Your environment does not define you, but your mindset does. So whether you live in a palace or a hut, your discipline must remain unchanged. And we've done lots of stories about Kyokushin founder Masayama going and training in the mountains and essentially living, like an animal in training to help sharpen his mind to be that way. So, then no matter where he is, he carries that spirit with him. So that's when I first read that, I was like, what? I love where I train and everything. And I don't know that he's necessarily talking about that as much as he is. Don't let your environment make you comfortable. Be aware of it. So I think it's a lot about awareness as opposed to just physical proximity. 13, do not pursue the taste of good food. So samurai teachings tell us that the warrior eats to fuel, not for pleasure, right? So this is like training advice, I guess. But so he's not saying starve yourself. He was warning against gluttony, right? Overindulgence, right? We eat for strength. We eat to train. Eat clean, train mean is another thing that I've heard taught to me from the sport karate circuit. But think of elite soldiers in training, right? Rations for basic, functional, sustainable life. Because working self-control over craving builds mental toughness. So ask yourself, do I consume food or does my enjoyment of food consume me? If you're truly training, truly trying to walk the path, that is something you have to get control over. That is where a lot of people fail in general in being healthy. And he's telling you how to be healthy. 14, do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. I suffer from this. I'm much of a pack rat. I'm not a hoarder, but I definitely have sentimental things. Bushido teaching is a samurai carries only what he needs. Excess is weakness. Yeah, a true warrior travels light, physically, mentally, emotionally. Hoarding material things, it leads to attachment weakness, which is one of the other ones. And Musashi was, according to the story, absolutely living by that principle, essentially only traveling with the clothes on his back and his sword, not knowing where he would get food or where he would sleep from day to day. And that is an extreme, nomadic version of this, but we can apply this. I mean, if I look at my home now, how many useless things do I have? Last time we moved, we literally had boxes marked UFOs, useless effing objects. And I don't know why I keep them. I actually have a storage area that I pay like $75 a month for that holds stuff that my house won't hold. And I keep saying I don't know why I keep this stuff, and I have to go back. I need to go get rid of it. So on this one, I am definitely failing, but yeah, it's a good one. 15, do not act following customary beliefs. This is like a lot about training too. So question everything. Do not follow tradition blindly. Just because something is accepted as normal doesn't mean it's right. He had a two-sword style, Ichiryo or something like that. But it was revolutionary in the time, right? It defied all tradition, all samurai sword fighting tradition, right? Everything was a single sword school. That's just what they did. And he shows up with two. And he became the greatest swordsman of all time because of that. And it seems like a simple thing, but he just basically was like, well, why would I not have two when everyone else has one? Two beats one. Pretty simple, right? So you must follow the way. You must walk the way, but you must also find your own way, which is a lot of what I walk alone means. It's a mindset. And that's, it doesn't mean be disrespectful. I think a lot of people would read this one and think it means reject everything that's been done before. And that's not what it is. That's how you get from zero to intermediate, right? That's you're making it through the basics. Your white belt to your black belt is all about just learning the basics, right? Doing what's been done before, being repetition and doing it that way. Once you get to that point, that's why we say that, black belt isn't the end. It's just the beginning of learning, because once you have the basics, then you can truly begin to learn how to utilize the basics and find your own way to a certain degree. And that's what that's about. 16, do not collect weapons or practice beyond what is useful. Here's a quote from Bruce Lee. Fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. A warrior doesn't hoard weapons. We master a couple deeply. So this philosophy mirrors a lot of special forces training, where we master a small, lethal skill set and get really good and deep at that one thing, rather than being mediocre at 100 things. Right? That's why you don't see, a lot of these guys learning, high-level marksmanship and high-level airplane or helicopter piloting and high-level boating and high-level parachuting and high-level demolitions and high-level motorcycle driving, right? And jiu-jitsu black belt. Like you pick one, right? It's this idea of this in development, web design development. We have this concept called the T-shaped individual. So, a generalist is it's like a straight line or a thick line, right? A generalist is good at a lot, or a generalist is decent at like a lot of things, right? A specialist is only good at like one thing. So theirs is really deep, but it's not really wide, right? But that T-shaped individual that is generally good at a lot of things, but at one thing they're very excellent, and then maybe another thing they're kind of halfway excellent, right? And that's what makes you lethal. From this thought, and I happen to agree, right? So you focus on what's really truly effective, right? Whether in business, martial arts, or personal growth, or whatever. Specialization will win battles. I've seen it in business too. And you can take that to whatever degree you want, right? And I think it applies everywhere. So, with that one, your mileage may vary, as a friend of mine, Rob, says, but I happen to believe in that. 17, do not fear death. Hagakure, great samurai writing, teaches us meditation on death should be a daily practice. The ultimate, the penultimate warrior mindset is fearlessness in the face of death, right? Samurai, famously, whatever, were ready to die at any moment, and to the point where they would do seppuku, which was ending their own life if they decided that they were not honorable, right? So samurai meditated on their mortality every day. Because when you accept death, you are free to live with absolute clarity and purpose. This SEALs embrace a similar philosophy, and again, we've said it before, but embrace the suck, right? Hardship and death are part of the path. Accept them and move forward. It doesn't mean, for the SEALs, for the samurai, in the, back whenever, it meant actual life. It meant life and death, right? For us nowadays, we're not really living in a life and death scenario, but we are living in a, I need this, I don't need this mentality, right? It is testing your morality, which we are. You just look at the state of politics as they stand now. Our morality is tested every day. And you're seeing that in a lot of people where they're literally not talking to other family members anymore because they have drawn a line in the sand of what they're willing to deal with. And, you can have your own opinions about that. Family is family. It's a different subject. But, just how far are you willing to take not accepting something, right? For fear of the outcomes of not accepting the thing. And the samurai or the Dokkōdō would tell you, don't fear it. Embrace it. Embrace the suck, right? 18, do not seek to possess goods or fiefs for your old age. A warrior does not hoard, he prepares. It's just a different way of looking at it, right? This isn't saying don't plan for the future. This isn't saying don't save money, right? But what it's saying is don't let wealth or possessions become your obsession. Samurai didn't serve for land and money. They served for honor. I mean, all things being equal, historically studying. So modern warriors should focus on building skills and legacy, not just wealth, right? It doesn't mean don't do that in the process. It just means don't sell one out for the other. 19, respect Buddha and the gods, but do not rely on them. Navy SEAL motto, pray for strength, but row away from the rocks. Faith is valuable, but personal responsibility is key to life. So Musashi's principles align with SEAL philosophy, right? No one is coming to save you. You must do the work. But, respect spiritual guidance. Respect your religion. But your fate is in your own hands when it comes to being on this earth, particularly from a warrior's mindset. 20, you may abandon your body, but you must preserve your honor. Death before dishonor. That's definitely a samurai Bushido code. It's the core of Bushido. Your physical body is temporary, but your honor is eternal. There's a scene in Troy with Brad Pitt, and the kid comes to get him. He needs to go fight this guy. And the kid is sent to get him, and the kid gets him his shit and puts him on the horse, and he says, do you know who you're fighting? And he's like, and Brad Pitt, he's playing Achilles. Achilles says no. And the kid says, he's like 7 feet tall and 300 pounds or whatever. He looks scary. Are you still going to go fight him? And he says, yeah. And the kid's like, God, I wouldn't do it. And he looks at the kid and he says, that's why no one will remember your name. That may seem arrogant. It came off arrogant in the movie, but the idea is that he's facing down that battle. He's taking that on. And that's what he's known for, right? In ancient Japan, a samurai would rather die with integrity than live with disgrace. A lot of modern warriors, from the military to martial arts leaders, they still hold this principle sacred. I do. There's a lot of disgraceful people in the world, including military leaders and martial artists, but it's one I happen to hold, and I will always, and it's one of the codes that I try to live by, is that I will always do right by someone, because that's how I want to be remembered. I want to be remembered as the person that was helpful and that truly cared for people above himself, right? I think about that a lot. It's part of that daily meditation on death. What legacy will you leave? Will you go to the end of your life? Will you go into that deathbed knowing you lived life with honor? Or will you have moments in your life that you regret, that you wish you could go back and change? Okay, and if you feel in your gut that you're entering one of those moments, that you're eventually going to wish you could go back and change, then why are you going in that direction? Okay, are you a warrior or not? And then the final one, and I have this in my own dojo. I have this written in Japanese calligraphy, but never stray from the way. The Bushido, a warrior who abandons his path is already dead. You're no longer, if you're not walking the path, you're not a warrior, right? So never stray from the way. Your way is your purpose, your guiding philosophy. Once you find it, you never deviate from it. And it doesn't have to be specifically the one that he's written, or the one that Funakoshi has written, or the one that the Navy SEALs write, or the one that Mark Devine tells me about. It doesn't have to be those things. It has to be the thing that I believe in. But once I find it and I articulate it, never deviate from it. Because when you do that, it's not real anymore. You have to make it real. Musashi spent his entire life refining his craft. Bruce Lee created Jeet Kune Do by never compromising his pursuit of truth in martial arts. SEALs never quit. They have the saying, never quit. They've pushed forward until the mission is complete, including if it involves death. That's the most important and final and most important lesson. In Zen Shodokai, we have a saying, never give up. So live by your principles, die by your principles, never stray from the way, never give up. These principles aren't just for samurai. They can apply to anyone who's seeking truth, strength, honor, and discipline. Jocko says discipline equals freedom. I think Musashi would agree with him. Which one of these speaks to you the most? Are you living the warrior mindset? Or are you drifting? And be honest with yourself. I drift from time to time too. So I would love to continue this conversation. So leave me a note, comment, DM, text, carrier pigeon, whatever. Share your thoughts. Stay disciplined. I'm Gene. Until next time, stay strong, stay sharp, never stray from the way, never give up.